Family.
Hi, Jared. How are you?
Well, for a Tuesday.
Yeah, good seeing you. Thanks for joining us and judging for us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.
We're going to go live in just a second. So we'll ask everybody to mute.
And we're live.
Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Emily Lin and the Associate Dean of the Graduate College. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our 9th annual Rebel Grad Slam 3-minute thesis competition. The 3-minute thesis, or 3MT competition model, was developed at the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. It spread to other universities in Australia and New Zealand in 2009 and 2010. By 2011, the 3MT competition phenomena had spread around the globe, and now more than 600 universities from more than 65 countries hold this competition. In 2014, UNLV held our first 3MT, the Rebel Grad Slam. And this year is our 9th annual Research Rumble. The 3MT is a fantastic opportunity for students to learn how to convey who they are, what they study, why they study it, how they study it, what they found or expect to find, and why it matters to an audience of folks who are mostly outside of their field. It's an important opportunity to build their public speaking and communication skills and to polish one's elevator speech describing what they study as graduate students. It's worth noting that our slammers come from all over campus and from a wide range of disciplines. Some first-year students are here competing and some are in their final years. Some slammers are master's students while others are advanced doctoral candidates. It's a diverse pool of folks and we have about 80 graduate students competing this week. So today, we have a group of UNLV graduate students who have been randomly assigned to compete in this preliminary round. Each will present their research in 3 minutes or less, using just one slide and no props. We will introduce each student and then the timer will start. If a student goes over 3 minutes, they will be eliminated from the competition. Slammers are encouraged to pace themselves and use their 3 minutes without going over it. It's not easy, but that's what the 3MT is all about. So just some reminders for our slammers. Please make sure to keep your microphone on mute and video off when other competitors are presenting. Only turn on your microphone and video when you are presenting. Please be sure to stay for the entire session even after you are done presenting. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat in between presenters. Please don't use chat during anyone's presentation as it may be distracting. You may sit or stand while presenting. You may also wear a mask while presenting and the judges will not penalize you for doing so. Please remember you only have 2 minutes and 59 seconds and one chance to compete. And please keep an eye on the timer. It's going to appear on your bottom left corner of your screen. Once you begin speaking, we'll start the timer and you will not be able to restart unless something beyond your control happens. For example, let's say your dog barks in the background. Just keep presenting, keep going. Please do not stop unless I stop you. And if your Wi-Fi goes and you lose Wi-Fi and you're disconnected somehow, please just join back in. We'll wait a minute for you and then go on to the next presenter. If that happens, you can redo your presentation at the end. And please remember, you may not read your presentation or use any notes on your screen or in front of you. Now let's turn our attention to the scoring for this research rumble. The judges will be assessing the competitors based on metrics, which total 24 possible points in 4 major categories, which include comprehension, content, engagement, and communication. Each judge will independently score each competitor. Judges will not penalize competitors for wearing masks to present or for any unanticipated disruptions that are beyond the slammer's control. At the end of the presentation, we will tally the judges' combined scores for each grad slammer and announce the winners right here live today. The top 3 in this session will advance to the semifinals. I'd like to note that this round of the competition is happening live in WebEx and will be simultaneously aired on the Graduate College's YouTube channel. And to give you a sense of this year's competition, we do have 80 students who are competing in the preliminary rounds, and around 36 of them will move forward to the semifinals, and only about 9 will advance to the finals, which will be held at 4 p.m. this Friday, November the 4th. So without further ado, let me introduce the judges, and then we'll get on our 3MT Research Rumble. We have a set of very distinguished judges in today's session, and they are Dr. Javier Rodriguez, who is a professor in biological sciences in the School of Life Sciences in the College of Sciences. We also have Associate Professor Jared Geiger, who is in social work and in our Greenspun College. We have also Dean Jennifer Keene. She is the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts with us. We have also Leonardo Gautiot, and Leonardo was working with us in the graduate college. We welcome participation. Leonardo is currently in the Office of Admissions. So thank you so much, judges, for joining us today. And now we are ready, I believe, to begin the competition. And our first presenter is going to be Demi Cortese, and she is in the Doctor of Clinical Psychology program with advisor Dr. Stephen Benning, and she will be presenting psychopathy and moral decision-making. Would a psychopath kill 1 to save 5? And whenever you begin, Demi, the timer will start.
Okay, thank you. A trolley is malfunctioning and is speeding down a track towards 5 workers. You're in a nearby control room. If you pull the lever, the trolley will be switched onto a different set of tracks, and this will save the 5 workers. But it will kill a different worker who's working on the other set of tracks. So do you sacrifice 1 to save 5? We asked a sample of 212 people what they would do in this and 15 similar scenarios, including organ transplants, cults, the government, and other themes, in which they had to choose whether they would send 1 person to their death in order to save 5 others. But here's the trick. We also assess for the level of psychopathy, and that's why Hannibal is pulling the lever over there. Psychopaths are indifferent to social norms, they disobey laws, and they're known to blatantly disregard the rights of others without feeling an ounce of guilt about it. So since the 1800s, psychopathy has been regarded as the absence of morality. But morality is a complex concept. What distinguishes right from wrong depends on your theoretical orientation. One philosophical doctrine, utilitarianism, supports that the most ethical decision is one that creates the most good for the most people. So utilitarian would divert the trolley in a heartbeat. But a deontologist who believes that certain actions, such as murder, are always wrong, no matter the circumstance, would let the trolley fulfill its original destiny and kill the 5 workers. So our question was, would people with elevated psychopathic traits pull the lever and sacrifice 1 to save 5? It turns out they certainly would. Those high on psychopathy demonstrated greater behavioral intent to pull the lever, which was not a shocking revelation, but even more interestingly, their traits did not affect their moral reasoning. in that it did not cause them to view the action as more morally right or more permissible than other people. It just increased their willingness to take action. So when we dug a little further into the data, we found that it is specifically those who lack empathy and show little concern for others that were more likely to make utilitarian decisions. So it's the lack of emotionality and not rationality that drives psychopaths to show disregard for others. In conclusion, although often regarded as immoral figures, the emotional attachment of people with psychopathic traits may render them either better equipped to make rational decisions in difficult situations where emotions might cloud the rational judgment of others, or it might drive them to make a terrible decision in situations where we must exercise qualitative rather than quantitative judgments, such as designing a self-driving car that chooses to run over a child in order to save 5 criminals. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Demi. And at this time, I'll invite the judges to do the scoring. Okay, so our next slammer is Robert Jackson. He's going to be presenting on correlating mid-Miocene volcanic ash through geochemical fingerprints and age dating. He is currently in the geoscience PhD program, and he's working with Dr. Minghua Ren. And so whenever you're ready, Robert, you may begin your presentation.
Hello. My research looks to apply geochemistry and age dating to investigate early Yellowstone hotspot activity in eastern Oregon and southwestern Idaho. Recently, the Idaho Geologic Survey identified ash deposits and lavas in southwestern Idaho, one of which they dated to 16.4 million years ago. And given this time and space distinction, it's associated with the Columbia River basalts and also early Yellowstone hotspot activity. So this raises a few questions. Where exactly were these ashes generated? What volcanic system were they derived from? How large or intense were these eruptions? And what processes led to the generation of these volcanic products? And to investigate these questions, I'll be employing field methods, gathering data on the stratigraphy, meaning the relationship with underlying and overlying units, as well as the thickness of these ash deposits and lavas and their location in space to get a distinction on where these ashes were dispersed and how thick for tracing back to their volcanic system. And looking closer into their chemical composition, we'll be gathering bulk rock geochemical signatures, meaning that we homogenize the ash and the crystals within them to get one geochemical signature for that. And then looking more closely, we'll isolate the crystals within the ash to get a signature for the crystal itself, as well as investigate minute chemical distributions from core to rim to investigate these magmatic processes that are recorded through the crystal through time. And then pairing this geochemical signature with the eruption date, we get a fingerprint that will allow us to link them to known eruption centers during this time period that with hopefully will expand ash dispersal models for that given system. And through investigation of these crystals, we can gain insight to early Yellowstone hotspot activity in Eastern Oregon and southwestern Idaho, as well as investigate these magmatic processes responsible for generating these ash eruptions across this region prior to its migration to current Yellowstone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. And at this time, the judges will spend a couple minutes just doing the scoring. Okay, and our next slammer is Raj Dashi, and he will be presenting on determining the components of DNA that lead to the development of Alzheimer's disease. He's currently a PhD student in the Biological Sciences program and working with Dr. Kang Liu. So whenever you're ready, please go ahead.
So my research has focused on looking at Alzheimer's disease and why certain people develop it and others don't. This can be answered by looking at 3 questions listed on the left side of the slide. What is Alzheimer's disease, or AD? Alzheimer's is a neurological disease of the brain, and it affects over 5 million Americans today. It can have symptoms occurring as early as 30, but this is known as early onset, but it can also occur later in somebody's life. Looking at Alzheimer's disease in the context of DNA will allow us to understand the variability between patients of why certain people get it and others don't. So this leads me to the second question, which is why genomics. Genomics is a good technology to look at when looking at DNA variability in people. However, certain mutations in genes can occur that can cause the onset of the disease. This will be a good model to look at to analyze the DNA and look at why certain people get it and certain people do not. This leads me to the last question. How is epigenetics involved? As you can see in the diagram depicted in the slide, this is a model of a chromosome, which is what the structural unit in our body that houses our DNA. At the bottom of the picture, there is DNA methylation depicted. This is a form of epigenetic regulation. This can control how the genes are expressed, and this will give further insight into how Alzheimer's may be further insight into how Alzheimer's develops in people. So my hypothesis for this is the DNA of Alzheimer's patients should have more control of the genes that's in their DNA, especially the genes that are important for Alzheimer's. And to do this, we're going to be looking at two different groups with a sample size of about 10. And one group will be patients that have AD and others will be healthy individuals that don't. We're going to extract their DNA from blood samples using a pre-made kit. And then we'll prepare that for sequencing to sequence the DNA using a technology called Oxford Nanopore technology, which is relatively newer and far superior than other methods that are available in the past. Finally, we'll do quality control of the data and conduct statistical analysis to make sure that our results are significant and report the findings in the form of a journal article. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Raj. And right now then, I'll ask the judges to please do their ratings. Okay, our next slammer is Mary Ludwig, and she will be presenting on incarcerated nations, removal and confinement on indigenous lands. She is currently a PhD student in history department, and her advisor is Dr. William Bauer. So whenever you're ready to begin, Mary.
Hello. Indigenous peoples today face incarceration at twice the rate of white Americans. Indigenous peoples are 3 times more likely to be shot by police than white Americans. Indigenous imprisonment has deeper roots than the usual narrative that locates mass incarceration as a late 20th century movement. Long before the industrialized prison complex in America, the United States created boarding schools and reservations to imprison indigenous peoples. Indian agents surveilled, removed, and policed indigenous peoples in the name of protection, punishment, and reform. I argue that mass incarceration is part of, I argue that Indian policy is foundational to mass incarceration. I study the history of the Colorado River Indian tribes. In 1865, the United States created the Colorado River Indian Reservation. It was created to confine Mojaves and Chemehuevis onto the reservation, and yet Indian agents also foresaw bringing other nations to this area to confine and control them. In 1874, some 600 Wallapais were removed to the reservation and forcibly confined there. The very next year, in an act of resistance, the Wallapais fled. Yet the indigenous peoples who remained continued to face surveillance. Indian agents police the most intimate lives of Indigenous peoples, using the reservation and boarding schools to criminalize Indigenous relationships throughout the Progressive Era and into the 1920s. Then, during the Great Depression, the United States built the Parker Dam, incarcerating water behind the dam and creating an environmental incarceration of resources that forced the Chemehuevi onto the reservation. During World War II, 3 different groups were incarcerated at the Colorado River Indian Reservation: Japanese Americans at the Poston Relocation Center, and Hopis and Navajos who were pressured into colonizing the reservation. Ultimately, what we find is that Indian policies established a foundation to mass incarceration, and settler colonialism continues to create structures that affect millions of Americans to this day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. And so you know what time it is. The judges will perform their scoring right now. Thank you. Okay, our next presenter is Anthony Feldman. He is going to be presenting on investigating past Martian climates through terrestrial X-ray amorphous material heterogeneity, and he is currently a PhD candidate in the Geosciences program, and his advisor is Dr. Elizabeth Hosbrough. And whenever you are ready to begin, Anthony.
Hi, everybody. There's an ongoing debate in the Mars science community regarding the nature of early Martian climate, namely whether it was primarily warm and wet or Earth-like, or whether it was largely cold and icy with brief periods of intermittent warming periods, allowing for the persistence of water on the surface of Mars. One of the ways that we know that water was present on the surface of Mars is through the kinds of materials, namely the minerals that are present on the surface, some of which would have required water in order to form in terrestrial settings, and thus are likely to have required similar amounts of water on the surface of Mars in order to form. In particular, one of the kinds of materials we see there are what are called X-ray amorphous materials. These are materials that lack long-range crystalline structure, generally assumed to be incipient or very metastable weathering products that transition into more crystalline materials over time. What I'm trying to do is look at terrestrial environments that have similar kinds of X-ray amorphous materials, namely 2 field sites, one in the Klamath Mountains of Northern California and one in the Tablelands of Newfoundland, Canada, to examine how temperature and precipitation patterns affect the formation and the preservation of these kinds of materials over the long term. So what I'm showing you in the figure in the upper right of this in panels A, B, and C are kinds of X-ray amorphous materials that we've observed in these terrestrial soils, namely amorphous silica, and then a variety of these nanospherical and nanocrystalline, aka nanocrystallites are less than about 100 nanometers long in diameter, that are forming within our terrestrial field environments. In the lower left over here, we see some distribution of the kinds of crystallinity present in these field sites, as well as the chemical content of these nanocrystallites. Namely, in the lower left, I'm showing you that in the tablelands environment, which is a subarctic climate, we see a much lower degree of overall crystallinity within the X-ray amorphous materials. What I'm showing you in the chemical data there, with magnesium and silica on the x-axis and iron and aluminum on the y-axis, is that we see a clear dichotomy in the kinds of chemical constituents incorporated into these nanocrystallites between the two field sites, where the tablelands, again, are a cold and wet field site, and the Klamath Mountains in California are much warmer. And so we see that magnesium and silica, or what are called more mobile elements, are much higher or much more highly incorporated into the X-ray amorphous fraction within the subarctic climate, whereas we see a much higher degree of iron and aluminum present within the warmer field sites. So when we look at the complete project, we generally see lower degrees of crystallinity within colder sites, more mixed composition nanocrystallites in the colder sites, and more abundant amorphous silica, as well as something that I haven't shown in the figures here, but a lack of nanocrystalline phyllosilicates. Now, this colder field site is much more similar to the kinds of materials we see on the surface of Mars in this X-ray amorphous fraction, which would suggest that the X-ray amorphous component on Mars suggests cold and wet conditions predominated. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. And at this time, I'll ask the judges to do their ratings, please. Okay, our next slammer is Apurva Shahan, and she will be presenting on using machine learning to classify persons with pre-diabetes, diabetes, or diabetes with neuropathy. And she is currently a master's student in the biomedical engineering program. Her advisor is Dr. Mohammed Trabia and Dr. Janet Dufek. So whenever you're ready, Apurva.
Thank you for the introduction. Diabetes is a condition in which individuals produce insulin, they can't produce enough insulin, or they produced insulin to break down the sugars in their bloodstream. This can often lead to complications in the long term and is even estimated to be the second cause of death globally by the World Health Organization. One such complication is peripheral neuropathy, which leads to degradation of nerves in one's extremities. A common symptom of neuropathy is the formation of ulcers on one's foot. These ulcers, if untreated, can often lead to amputations. The problem comes in diagnosing neuropathy. Common methods are either very crude and subjective. They include, or they have you either poke someone's foot with a filament and ask them if they feel it or not, or they can be very time-consuming and expensive, like getting a biopsy done. Studies have shown that the plantar pressures of individuals, either walking or standing, can be used to differentiate someone with neuropathy from someone who has just diabetes, prediabetes, or is healthy. So based on this, the purpose of this study was to develop a method of classifying individuals with neuropathy, diabetes, or prediabetes based on walking plantar pressures. These pressures were found using the metallurgic pressure measuring insoles seen in the image above. They were fitted to 110 participants who were then asked to walk back. Along with these pressure features, we also looked at the participants' age, mass, height, and their HbA1c, or the measure of glucose in their bloodstream. So then all put into a machine learning classification algorithm. We use the k-nearest neighbors method, which determines what a data point's classification is based on the mode of classification of its k-nearest data points. So using this method, we tested different combinations of the pressure and non-pressure features, and we were able to results indicating that a combination, our best results, showed that a combination of age, mass, height, HbA1c, and the pressure time interval of the rear foot region are able to produce an accuracy 99% on average. We did it for 20 iterations to get what the average accuracy would be, and the average false negative rate looking specific neuropathy is only 0.41%. These results indicate that this method could be useful for clinicians for screening neuropathy, and upon further testing, could develop an alternative diagnosing method that is high in accuracy, low in cost, and easily accessible.
Okay, thank you, Apurva. And at this time, I'll ask the judges to do the ratings, please. Thank you. Okay, and our last slammer for this session is Bagia de Silva, and she is working on thermodynamic characteristics of the binding between GSK3 beta protein and beryllium ion, our approach to discover novel drug candidates for Alzheimer's disease. She is currently a PhD student in the biochemistry program, and her advisor is Dr. Ronald Gray. So whenever you are ready, Bagia, please go ahead.
Thank you. A few years ago, I did a 3MT presentation, and I started my talk by saying, imagine the pain you would feel if your mother or father forgot that you are their son or daughter. It feels ironic because my father is now an Alzheimer's patient. He used to be a very active person in our family and community, but now he doesn't remember us or anything he did. He's one of 50 million patients in the world living with Alzheimer's disease. Although age is a risk factor, Alzheimer's is not a part of normal aging. Alzheimer's disease is an irreversible degenerative disorder of the brain that disrupts the memory, cognition, personality, and other functions, eventually leading to the complete brain failure and death. Indeed, we will eventually grow old, and it's true that we can't live forever, but we all want to live a quality and healthy life until the very end. If breakthroughs are not discovered, patients with Alzheimer's disease could exceed over 150 million by 2050. Scientists are exploring many approaches towards discovering better therapeutics or an ultimate cure. Our approach investigates a protein called GSK3 beta, which is hyperactive in Alzheimer's brain cells. Hyperactive GSK3 beta contributes to the loss of brain cells and the shrinking of the brain. Our research group found that beryllium salts can inhibit the activity of GSK3 beta. My dissertation research aims to understand the mechanisms involved in this inhibition. To study this, I mixed GSK3 beta protein with beryllium in an instrument called the ITC. When beryllium binds to GSK3 beta, the ITC can detect the heat changes in the system. By titrating different concentrations of the protein with beryllium in the ITC, I can obtain chemical characteristics for the binding between these two molecules based on those heat changes. These chemical data can then be inputted to modeling software to design potential drug molecules targeting GSK3 beta protein. And by screening these molecules for successful GSK3 beta inhibition, we can discover drug candidates that could significantly slow down the GSK3 beta activity and delay the degradation of brain cells in Alzheimer's patients and extend their quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhagia. And I'll ask the judges to do their final ratings. And as they do so, I'd like to extend our appreciation for joining us for our preliminary rounds. A special thanks to you all and also to our Grad Academy team who have made this 3MT event possible. Now, please just stay tuned. We're going to tally up the scores and we'll make the announcements of the winners live in just a few minutes. And while only the top 3 winners of this round will progress to the semifinals, you as participants are all winners because you'll receive a Rebel Grad Slam t-shirt. You can get your t-shirt during the Grad Rebel Slam final receptions. The semifinal round, just to let you know, the first place winner will get $600, while the second place winner will get $400, and the third place winner will get $200. So, like I said, if you can just please hang on a couple of minutes as we tally up final scores, and we'll return in a few minutes to announce the top 3 finishers who will advance to the semifinals. Thank you. Okay, the results are in, and so we kept you in suspense for much too long. We are about to announce the winners who will advance again to the semifinal session. And so in this session, our third place finisher was Mary Ludwig. Congratulations, Mary. You're moving on. Our second place winner was Bagia de Silva. Congratulations, Bagia. You're moving on to the semifinals. And so our first place finisher was Demi Cortese. Congratulations, Demi. Thanks again to all of your participation, everyone, and please join us for the semifinals round on Thursday, November the 3rd at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 1:30 p.m. in the Student Union Philip Cohen Theater. And the finals, again, are going to be held on Friday, November the 4th at 4 p.m. in the Greenspun Auditorium. Lastly, we have for you your grad Rebel Slam t-shirts available at the finals receptions at 5 o'clock in the Greenspun lobby. I've posted in the chat a link where you can RSVP. So thank you so much, everyone. Congrats to all of you for participating and have a great day.
Hello and welcome. My name is Brianne Heinley, and I'm the Executive Director of Business and Finance and the Academic Affairs. And I'm thrilled to welcome you to our 9th annual Rebel Grad Slam 3-minute thesis competition. The 3-minute thesis or 3MT competition model was developed at the University of Queensland, Australia in 2008. It spread to other universities in Australia and New Zealand in 2009 and 2010. By 2011, the 3MT competition phenomena had spread around the globe, and now more than 600 universities from more than 65 countries hold these competitions. In 2014, UNLV held our first 3MT, the Rebel Grad Slam, and this year is our 9th annual Research Rumble. The 3MT is a fantastic opportunity for students to learn how to convey who they are, what they study, why they study it, how they study it, what they found to expect or find, and why it matters to an audience of folks who are mostly outside of their field. It is an opportunity to build public speaking and communication skills and to polish one's elevator speech, describing what they study as graduate students. It's worth noting that our slammers come from all over campus and from a wide range of disciplines. Some are first-year students, some are in their final year. Some slammers are master's students, others are advanced doctoral candidates. It's a diverse pool of 80 graduate students competing here this week. So today we have a group of UNLV graduate students who have been randomly assigned to compete in this preliminary session. Each will present their research in 3 minutes or less using one slide and no props. We will introduce each student and then start the timer. If the student goes over 3 minutes, they will be eliminated from the competition. Slammers are encouraged to pace themselves and use their 3 minutes without going over. It's not easy, but that's what the 3MT is all about. Okay, so slammers. Please make sure to keep your microphone on mute and video off when other competitors are presenting. Only turn on your microphone and video when you are presenting. Please be sure to stay for the entire session, even after you're done presenting. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat in between presenters. Please don't use your chat during anyone's presentation as it may be distracting. You may sit or stand while presenting. You may also wear a mask while presenting. Judges will not penalize you for doing so. You only have 2 minutes and 59 seconds and 1 chance to compete. And please keep an eye on the timer in the bottom left corner of your screen. Once you begin speaking, we'll start the timer and you'll not be able to restart unless something beyond your control occurs. If you're presenting and your dog barks in the background, just keep presenting. Please do not stop unless I stop you. Don't worry though, if you lose Wi-Fi or are disconnected, please join back in. We'll wait a minute for you and then we'll go on to the next presenter. If that happens, you can redo your presentation at the end. And please remember that you may not read your presentation or use any notes on your screen or in front of you. Now let's turn our attention to the scoring for this research rumble. The judges will be assessing the competitors based on metrics which total 24 possible points in 4 major areas: comprehension, content, engagement, and communication. Each judge will independently score each competitor. Judges will not penalize competitors for wearing masks to present or for unanticipated disruptions that are beyond the slammer's control. At the end of the presentations, we will tally the judges' combined scores for each grad slammer and announce the winners right here live. The top 3 in this session will advance to the semifinals. I'd like to note that this round of the competition is happening live in WebEx and will be simultaneously aired live on the Graduate College's YouTube channel. And to give you a sense of this year's competition, 80 students are competing in the preliminary rounds. Around 36 will move on to the semifinals, and only 9 will advance to the finals at 4 p.m. on Friday, November 4th. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the judges, and then we'll get on with our 3-minute thesis research rumble. We have a set of very distinguished judges in today's panel. So today with us, we have Dean Ann McDonough, who is Dean of the Academic Success Center and Professor of Theater. We have Kathleen Thimpson from the School of Nursing. She's an associate professor. Graham McGinnis, assistant professor in kinesiology and nutrition sciences. Alexis Kennedy, who's a professor in criminal justice. We have Ala Kiko, who is a graduate affairs coordinator in the College of Sciences. And finally, Marta Soligo, who is a teaching faculty in sociology. Welcome and thank you for serving today as part of our distinguished panel of judges. All right, so we're ready to begin the competition. Our first presenter today will be Lucas Gallup, who is a doctoral student in mechanical engineering, and he'll be presenting on comparison of modeling methods of 3D printed TPU filament.
Hello. According to the CDC, there are approximately 2,000 children born every year with underdeveloped limbs. Prosthetics can provide an increase in quality of life. However, the cost of a modern prosthetic can be extremely high. A single limb can cost anywhere from a few $1,000s to hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is simply not attainable for the average family, especially when you consider the fact that that child will outgrow that limb numerous times throughout their life. 3D printing provides an excellent solution to this problem. A 3D printed hand, like the one we have here at UNLV, costs mere dollars to make in materials and requires very little alterations to fit a new person or for resizing for a returning user. Our hand uses a 3D printed polymer called NinjaFlex to replace the finger joints. It's a highly elastic material that is excellent for this application. However, the bending behavior of it is not very well understood. It was therefore the goal of our research to understand this bending behavior and to create a model that could accurately predict it. We started by conducting an experiment on 18 different joint configurations, one of which can be seen in the image on the left. You can see the NinjaFlex in the center printed black, and the brackets on either side, which we use to fix the specimen and apply loads. Next, we created 2 different models, one of which was based off of fundamental beam theory, which we call modified Euler-Bernoulli, and the other which was based off of finite element analysis. You can see the results compared to the experiment in the image on the right. In the blue, we have the results from the experiment. In the green, we have the results from the modified Euler-Bernoulli. And in the black, we have the results from the finite element analysis. Overall, we found that the finite element analysis did a sufficient job at predicting the deflection for all 18 specimens. The modified Euler-Bernoulli worked better for specimens that were stiffer, and this one we can see in the image is actually one of our more flexible ones, which is why it doesn't fit quite as well. The results of our experiment were twofold. One, we now have 2 different models to predict the deflection of NinjaFlex, and 2, our modified Euler-Bernoulli method is comparable to finite element analysis under certain circumstances, which will save us a lot of computational time and power when applied. Now we can begin to optimize the prosthetic hand as a whole, and we can start to create prosthetics that are life-changing and affordable for anyone who might need them. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Lucas. Now we're going to give the judges a minute to score. Right, so next up we have Barbara Lewis, who is a doctoral student in public health, and she will be presenting on patient and family advisory councils, nothing about patients without patients.
10 years ago, I spent 2 weeks in the ICU with my sister Joan, who passed away very tragically. I wrote a document about that experience called Joan's Family Bill of Rights, and I sent it to the head of the ICU, who later told me that she cried when she read it. She passed it along to the CEO of the hospital, and he sent it to the heads of the health system. They flew me across the country to make 3 presentations at their facilities, and I was honored to give my sister a voice. But I was shocked at the number of people who were lined up to talk to me about their experiences. And I realized that this wasn't my personal story, that this was actually a universal narrative. And I said, I've got to do something. So I closed my marketing company and devoted my life, or myself, to improving the patient experience. And the first question I asked is, where's the patient voice in hospitals? And I discovered patient and family advisory councils, otherwise known as PFACs, that have about 5 to 18 volunteers. They meet periodically, often monthly, and they offer advice to hospitals. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Every hospital's got to have one, right? Wrong. I was on a conference call and a woman said that her CEO wouldn't start a PFAC because there was no business case. So armed with my MBA, I decided to prove anecdotally that PFACs save hospitals money, improve safety, and enhance the patient experience. And when that research was published, PFACs actually started growing, which was very nice that there were more PFACs in hospitals. So now what I've decided to do is to analyze the data from the American Hospital Association, which has an annual survey for 6,000 hospitals and 1,300 variables. And one of those questions is, does your hospital have a PFAC? And then append to that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services data on patient experience scores as well as safety scores. And my question is, do hospitals with PFACs have better safety grades or patient experience scores? For my sister, unfortunately, it's too late for the PFAC to improve her experience or help with safety. But I'm hoping that the research will show that there's a value to patient and family advisory councils. Nothing about patients without patients.
Thank you, Barbara. Now we'll give the judges a minute to score. All right, next up we have Catherine Gaddis, who is a doctoral student in anthropology and who will be slamming on revising the narrative, representation of the elderly in bioarchaeology.
Bioarchaeology is a study of human skeletal remains from an archaeological perspective. The field focuses on placing individuals within the context of a larger social narrative. When certain groups are excluded from this narrative for whatever reason, our understanding of the population or society as a whole is greatly diminished. Historically, older adults have been largely underrepresented in bioarchaeological research. Now, this is partially due to methodological issues, which result in the underestimation of age at death, and partially due to a Western ambivalence toward aging and old age. This is problematic as a key component of bioarchaeological research involves the reconstruction of population-level morbidity and mortality patterns. Differences in these patterns observed either between population groups or across time and space may be indicative of larger systemic inequalities, which put certain individuals and groups at higher risk of illness or injury than others. Interdisciplinary collaboration may help us to address some of the challenges that have contributed to this research gap. My research takes an interdisciplinary, intersectional approach to the study of aging and senescence in bioarchaeological context. Intersectionality theory, which is rooted in Black feminist scholarship, recognizes that different aspects of individual identity act together to determine how an individual interacts with their physical and sociocultural environment. By recognizing age as a social identity, we are able to place it within the larger context of the self and personhood, and to better understand how aging helps shape individual life histories. I also draw upon life history theory, which emphasizes the trade-offs that occur with energy allocation across the human lifespan, and which helps us to understand the processes of aging and senescence from a biological perspective. The data collected for this project comes from a late medieval Polish cemetery site located in modern northeast Poland. This site is representative of an era of complex environmental and social reform following crusade and colonization in the region. This project focuses on exploring patterns of aging and senescence and pathology and trauma in order to better understand the unique experiences of the elderly in past societies, and to help us to piece together the contributing factors that may have allowed individuals to survive their old age during this time period. In doing so, we learn much about human health, life history, and resilience as a whole. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. We'll give their judges their minute to score. All right, next up we have Yusuf Fahmy, who is a master's student in mechanical engineering. And Yusuf will be slamming on towards reducing anastomach failures.
Every year in the United States, 320 patients go through colorectal surgery. A big portion of that surgery, in many cases, results in a procedure called colectomies. Colectomies are when you take a portion of an infected colon out of someone and reconnecting it using anastomosis. Anastomosis can occur with a bunch of different methods. Those can come from stapled methods or sutured methods. The common methods that are seen, we're using staples that are created by Ethicon. The two main methods that we see are end-to-side and end-to-end. And the reason why we're studying this is out of those 320,000 patients that we see every year, 29% of them suffer through some sort of failure with that anastomotic connection. Due to that failure, we decided to study the two most common stapling methods using the Ethicon staplers with end-to-end and end-to-side, and using a fixture that submerges the entire colon that is reconnected, we are able to notice the pressure failures and when we see the failures occur. The preliminary results so far show that our end-to-side was able to hold a larger amount of pressure than the end-to-end, which is generally accepted as a myth within the surgical community, not necessarily with data. So our research here is to make sure that we're able to validate that through an ex vivo model and hopefully be able to create a model that we can produce using finite element analysis and allow doctors to simply look at a colon, be able to do a couple of measurements and be able to determine, okay, this patient would probably benefit more if they did end-to-end rather than if they did end-to-side method for connections. Hopefully this research is still going to keep going, even though we are still in our first preliminary results phase. But once we keep going further, we're hopefully with more testing of specimen, a wider variety of specimen, we'd be able to guide surgeons and medical experts around the world to be able to make sure that less patients, less than 29% of that 320,000 people will survive without the anastomotic failure. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. All right, judges, you know what to do. All right, our next slammer is Ryan Connor, who is a master's student in clinical mental health counseling. And Ryan will be slamming on vicarious trauma in counselors.
Hello, everyone. As a mental health counselor and training myself, vicarious trauma in counselors is a topic that is very close to home for me. As counselors and therapists, we are consistently exposed to clients presenting with things like trauma and suicidality, which can lead to vicarious trauma in counselors. And what this means is that the counselor who is treating that client can experience trauma through their clients, which can inhibit our own mental health. But why should vicarious trauma in counselors be important to everyone else as well? Well, the US National Center for Health Statistics predicts that the rates of suicide are going to continue going up. And according to the Nevada Coalition for Suicide Prevention, Nevada is ranked 9th in the nation for high suicide rate. Throughout the state of Nevada, suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34, the fourth leading cause for ages 35 to 54, and the eighth leading cause for ages 55 to 64. So that means that we have a very high rate of suicide among a lot of our younger populations, and they predict that this is going to continue going up. Another reason is because Nevada is currently in a mental health crisis. We rank 51st in the state for mental health care prevention and treatment, according to the Commonwealth Fund. On top of that, we still have yet to see some of the more severe effects on our mental health and on suicide rates and experiences of trauma due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This goes for those who had to experience isolation, who were forced to, use the internet and computers more and have less social interaction, single mothers who couldn't provide supervision for their children or their kids did not have supervision, or single parents, and people who may have been forced to stay in abusive environments. We have no idea exactly how this is going to turn out in the future for rates of trauma and suicide. But this can lead to burnout in counselors and therefore contribute to the lack of care that we are currently experiencing, whether this is inhibiting counselor competence or by a decrease in counselors who are staying in the field. Less care contributes more to this crisis and feeds this big loop. So increases in trauma and suicide can also have devastating effects on our communities. Using a phenomenological study, we're looking to find what is effective for counselors who are dealing with these types of clients to be able to stay in the field and address these problems effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Judges, please start your scoring. All right, our final slammer of this session is Ariful Hasnat, who is a doctoral student in civil and environmental engineering and construction. And Ariful will be slamming on non-proprietary ultra-high performance concrete, future of concrete.
Thank you. Concrete is the most used construction material in the world. In fact, it is used in almost every infrastructure, including building, bridges, and roads. However, due to lower load capacity, poor durability, and high carbon emission, the conventional concrete that is used in the construction work often does not satisfy the requirement of modern sustainable infrastructure. To solve this problem, ultra-high performance concrete can be an excellent choice or alternative to replace the conventional concrete because ultra-high performance concrete has very high strength and durability properties compared to the conventional concrete that is used in the construction work. The problem is most of the ultra-high performance concrete that is available in the US are in proprietary and it utilizes very expensive raw materials. As a result, the cost of the available ultra-high performance concrete is at least 10 times expensive than the conventional concrete. To overcome these challenges, our research was set to develop non-proprietary ultra-high performance concrete using locally available construction materials without compromising the engineering properties that proprietary ultra-high performance concrete has. So we approached like this to reduce the material cost of ultra-high performance concrete. Instead of using the expensive silica fume too much, we utilize cost-effective Class A fly ash, natural pozzolan, and slag as a partial replacement of the cement. And instead of using the expensive silica sand, we have utilized the traditional fine sand that is available in Nevada. We used mix design optimization and customized mixture procedure, and we are able to achieve, as you can see in the figure, we are able to achieve excellent physical, mechanical, and durability properties with the developed ultra performance concrete, which is much higher than, as you can see, at least 3 times higher than the regular concrete and almost similar to the proprietary ultra high performance concrete. So finally, after conducting the cost analysis, we found that we can reduce the cost of non-proprietary ultra high performance concrete about 3 times the regular ultra high performance concrete, and we are able to find that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us for our preliminary rounds. A special thank you to the Grad Academy team who have made this 3MT event possible. Now, just stay tuned. We'll announce the winners live in just a few minutes. While only the top 3 winners of this round will progress to the semifinals, you will all be winners of a Rebel Grad Slam t-shirt. You can get yours during the Rebel Grad Slam finals reception. So we'll just wait a minute, we'll listen to some awesome music, and then we'll get on with announcing the winners. All right, we're back. I know who the winners are. I bet you all want to know too. So keep in mind, while all the competitors today get a t-shirt, first place winner will receive $300, second place winner will receive $200, and the third place winner will receive $100. Are you ready? Because here are the winners of our preliminary session. Very exciting. In third place, we have a tie. So we have Yusuf Fahmy and Araful Hassan will be our two third place winners of this preliminary session. Second place is Barbara Lewis. And in first place, we have drumroll Lucas Gallup. Congratulations, everybody. And thank you again for your participation. And please join us for the semifinal rounds on Thursday, November 3rd at 9, 11, and 1:30 in the Student Union Philip J. Cohen Theater. And the finals on Friday, November 4th at 4 p.m. in the Greenspun Auditorium. Lastly, we will have your Rebel Grad Slam t-shirts available at the finals reception at 5 p.m. in the Greenspun lobby. We are going to paste the link to the RSVP in the chat. And thank you again, everybody. We hope you had fun. We definitely had fun listening to all the presentations.
Okay, looks like we are ready to go. Hello and welcome. My name is Valerie Burke and I'm the Assistant Dean for Graduate Student Services, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to our 9th annual Rebel Grad Slam 3-minute thesis competition. The 3-minute thesis, or 3MT competition model, was developed at the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. It spread to other universities in Australia and New Zealand in 2009 and in 2010. By 2011, the 3MT competition phenomenon had spread around the globe, and now more than 600 universities from more than 65 countries hold these competitions. In 2014, UNLV held our first 3MT, the Rebel Grad Slam, and this year is our 4th annual Research Rumble. The 3MT is a fantastic opportunity for students to learn how to convey who they are, what they study, why they study it, how they study it, and what they found or expect to find, and why it matters to an audience of folks who are mostly outside their field. It's an opportunity to build public speaking and communication skills and to polish one's elevator speech describing what they study as graduate students. It's worth noting that our slammers come from all over campus and from a wide range of disciplines. Some are first-year students and some are in their final year. Some slammers are master's students, others are advanced doctoral candidates. It's a diverse pool of 80 graduate students competing here this week. So today we have a group of UNLV graduate students who have been randomly assigned to compete in this preliminary session. Each will present their research in 3 minutes or less using one slide and no props. We will introduce each student and then start the timer. If a student goes over 3 minutes, they will be eliminated from the competition. Slammers are encouraged to pace themselves and use their 3 minutes without going over. It's not easy, but it's what the 3MT is all about. Slammers, please make sure to keep your microphone on mute and video off when other competitors are presenting. Only turn on your microphone and video when you are presenting. Please be sure to stay for the entire session, even after you are done. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat in between presenters. Please do not use chat during anyone's presentation as it may be distracting. You may sit or stand while you're presenting. You may also wear a mask while you're presenting. Judges will not penalize you for doing so. You only have 2 minutes and 59 seconds and 1 chance to compete. Please keep an eye on the timer in the bottom left corner of your screen. Once you begin speaking, we will start the timer, and you will not be able to restart unless something beyond your control occurs. If you're presenting and your dog barks in the background, just keep presenting. Please do not stop unless I stop you. Don't worry though, if you lose Wi-Fi or are disconnected, please just join back in. We'll wait a minute for you and then go on to the next presenter. If that happens, you can redo your presentation at the end. And please remember that you may not read your presentation or use any notes on your screen or in front of you. Now let's turn our attention to the scoring for this research rumble. The judges will be assessing the competitors based on metrics which total 24 possible points in 4 major areas: comprehension, content, engagement, and communication. Each judge will independently score each competitor. Judges will not penalize competitors for wearing masks to present or for unanticipated disruptions that are beyond the slammer's control. At the end of the presentations, we will tally the judges' combined scores for each grad slammer and announce the winners right here live. The top 3 in this session will advance to the semifinals. I'd like to note that this round of the competition is happening live in WebEx and will be simultaneously aired live on the Grad College's YouTube channel. And to give you a sense of this year's competition, 80 students are competing in the preliminary rounds. Around 36 will move on to the semifinals, and only about 9 will advance to the finals, which will be held at 4 p.m. on this Friday, November 4th. So without further ado, let me introduce our judges, and then we will get on with the 3MT Research Rumble. We have a set of very distinguished judges in today's sessions. Introduce them. We have Monica Nita from Mathematical Sciences, Nicholas Irwin from Economics, Graham McInnes from Kinesiology and Nutrition Sciences, Claudia Keelan from the College of Liberal Arts, Sam Vugazato from the Office of the Registrar, Ashlyn Gray from the Graduate College. Welcome and thank you for serving on our distinguished panel of judges today. So we're ready to begin the competition. Our first presenter is Danielle Lee, who will be presenting on social stigma and methadone maintenance treatment outcome. Danielle is a PhD student in psychological and brain sciences with advisor Dr. Gloria Wong Patagompat. I will turn it over to you now, Danielle.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Hello, my name is Danielle Lay, and my research focuses on social impact and social factors and how it particularly impacts substance use disorder as well as substance use treatment. And to give context, I'm sure we've all heard about the war on drugs and the opioid epidemic, but exactly how bad is it? According to the CDC, about 108,000 people died from overdose-related deaths in just the US, and as well as only in 2021. And to give you a perspective, or more so an imagery, that is Thomas and Mack at full capacity times 6. And so earlier this year, President Biden had issued a call for increased funding, specifically looking at addiction as well as the opioid epidemic. He is targeting increased funding as well as support in evidence-based treatment, prevention, harm reduction, and recovery services for underserved communities. So admittingly, research is sparse about substance use treatment itself, and I've identified a disconnect between research and treatment. And furthermore, existing research typically looks at the biological and social factors of an individual at the initial use of substance use as well as their treatment. But we hardly look at these factors, biological and social, and how they can impact different areas through the entire treatment phase. So thus, there is a gap of knowledge that exists. The lack of research and understanding around psychosocial influences in different areas of treatment, as well as how it can impact retention as well as outcome of treatment. Specifically, I am interested in looking about how experienced and perceived stigma may impact an individual's mental health, as well as negatively affect their treatment outcome, in AKA basically relapsing in illicit substances. Understanding how stigma impacts treatment specifically will help us better understand how to promote and prevent substance use treatment in the long term. And this approach will look at the longevity of an individual's treatment management. And my work requires a collaboration with a substance use treatment facility, and I have chosen to work with a methadone clinic specifically. Methadone is one of the oldest and commonly used opioid use disorder treatment styles. And the clients would be taking a self-administered survey in which it would measure perceived and experienced stigma, psychological distress, and as well as relapse in their methadone treatment. I hope this study brings attention to the importance of biopsychosocial factors and how it perpetuates certain addictive behaviors. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. In between slammers, we will provide 60 seconds for our judges, and you'll hear some music playing while the judges are independently judging each slammer. Hello. Nicole, if you'd like to turn on your camera. There you are. Our next slammer is Nicole Santoro, who will be speaking on connected learning in online networks, a case study of the BTS Army fandom. Nicole is a PhD student in sociology with advisor Dr. Robert Futrell. I will now turn it over to you, Nicole.
Music fans have historically been reduced to just being a bunch of crazy, screaming fangirls who obsess over their favorite celebrities. But what if I told you these are some of the smartest, most supportive, and socially aware groups in our technology era? The ARMY fandom, fans of the music group BTS, is one of the most influential fan communities today, engaging in social causes and philanthropy, and known for having a strong presence on social media. While their strength lies in their passion for the group, it's also in the unique learning culture they've created online. Find BTS fans on Twitter and you'll see something you won't expect: a complex environment filled with subgroups of teachers, healthcare professionals, lawyers, engineers, and more. Of all places, how is this type of peer learning network created in a fandom? Through online ethnography and interviews, we use connected learning framework to learn more. Connected learning leverages advances of our digital age in which we have access to so much information and a new type of social connection. It involves three key things: interests, relationships, and opportunities. How does this work in a fandom? Well, fans connect through shared interests in BTS, but beyond music, fans also have other interests, talents, and expertise, which they bring into the fandom, creating spaces for new knowledge and resources. They build relationships by finding other like-minded fans, which enhances their shared sense of purpose and community. Then, new learning opportunities arise through social media, which can be in the form of collaborative production, mentorship, and even civic action. Here's a real-life example. Kim is a doctor who also loves BTS. She creates a Twitter account to follow BTS content. She meets fellow ARMYs who also work in the field, and together they celebrate BTS and also share resources and information about their work. They share this knowledge with even more fans by posting medical-related content in the context of BTS. Then, high school-age BTS fans see this, take an interest, gain personal mentorship from these professionals, and ultimately these young people decide to pursue the field to become doctors themselves. Now, we know that people are motivated to learn when it's grown out of personal interests. It's also crucial to have support from peers and mentors. It seems so simple, but in a time in which engagement drops 30% from when a student goes from elementary to high school, we need to better leverage new technologies. While some may think of social media as a distraction, the BTS world is an example of the type of meaningful and relevant learning that can engage young people outside of the classroom. We hope educators can use technology not as a means towards more efficient and automated forms of education, but as a progressive and experiential approach at the center of learning that can be enhanced by technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And now we will hear music while judges judge. Hello, welcome back. I see Gapson. Video is working. Okay, so I will introduce our next slammer, which is a Gapson Baguma, who will be presenting on assessment of the contamination levels and potential toxic elements and the sediments of an urban, industrial, and fish landing site. Gapson is a master's student studying civil and environmental engineering with advisor Dr. Erica Marty. I will now turn it over to you, Gapson.
As we speak right now, 45 persons per hour in Africa, they die, and 145 persons.
Captain, I'm so sorry to interrupt. You are echoing. Could you pause that more, the timer? I think you have two speakers on, or there's two of you in this room. If you want to maybe get out of the other one.
Is it okay now?
Perfect. We're going to go ahead and start over, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Can you go back more?
45 persons per hour.
1 second. Hold on. We have to restart the timer. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Right now, as we speak, 45 persons die per hour in the US out of the pollution from the heavy toxic metals, and 143.8 persons per hour in Africa are right now dying as we are seated here. According to the report that was recently put by the Lancet Fraternally Health Journal, it states that 90% of the deaths that are happening now are being contributed by the pollution and mainly by these heavy toxic metals. What are these heavy toxic metals? These are relatively dense metals or metalloids, which are noted for their potential toxicity. And they have been listed as number 10 chemicals, according to the World Health Organization. They involve the lead, the arsenic, the chromium, the cadmium, mercury, and nickel. These are problematic because, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, it has stated, or it has classified these ones are carcinogenic, which means they are more of cancerous and they cause more of problems to the people who may get in contact with them. For example, they may get in contact with them through contamination in air and contamination in water. They are dangerous or they are toxic because they damage the nervous system. And if someone's nervous system is damaged, that means you cannot function. The enzymatic action is inactivated, the cells are destroyed. That means you cannot do anything. My research objective was mainly focused on assessing the levels of these heavy metals and understanding their channels or ways through which they go through. These ones, you can see that I studied a specific landing site in Uganda, whereby it is more polluted and is where more people are. When people get into contact with these contaminated waters, they take them, and these are not regulated. So my major research topic was focusing on identifying these major levels of contamination and help come up with mitigation ways of controlling these heavy metals to prevent the number of deaths which are happening, as I have stated. So these get into water because they are poorly controlled, and these heavy metals are poorly soluble in water, which means they stay accumulated in the sediments. And these enter into the aquatic animals, for example, like fish, through accumulation. And if a person drinks or takes a fish, probably gets into contact with these heavy metals and gets to them and eventually dies out of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hello, is Taylor on camera yet?
I am here now. Hi.
There you are. Hi, Taylor. Our next slammer is Taylor Flattery, who will be presenting on misgendering a transgender woman using Fordisk 3.1, a case study perspective using the structural vulnerability profile. Taylor's a PhD student in the Department of Anthropology with advisor Dr. Jennifer Bryants. I will now turn it over to you, Taylor.
Good afternoon, and thank you all so much for attending my presentation today. Structural vulnerability is a form of systemic violence that puts marginalized groups at risk based on sociocultural, economic, and political hierarchies. This can lead to a risk of ill health amongst these populations and can also lead to an increased risk of mortality. Transgender and gender nonconforming people are particularly at risk because of the high levels of lethal violence that they face throughout the community. They face these levels of violence because they challenge the cis heteronormative standards within our society, such as the sex and gender binary, and this leads to their increased overrepresentation in forensic casework. In 2021, a transgender woman who is a local community member came to us and requested that we analyze her skull from an anthropological perspective. She wanted to know if our methods would classify her as a male or a female. Throughout her life, she has underwent extensive gender confirmation care, including gender confirmation surgery in the forms of facial feminization surgery and estrogen-based hormone replacement therapy. To carry out our analysis, we requested that a biological anthropologist who was unfamiliar with the case and therefore unbiased take measurements from a 3D printed replica of the transgender woman's skull, which can be seen on the screen in Figure 2. Measurements were taken from forensic anthropological standardized craniometric points around the skull, some of which can be seen here in Figure 3. These were then put into Fordisk, which is a forensic anthropology software that utilizes standardized measurements from the skeleton to estimate characteristics of an individual, such as their biological sex or their population affinity. Fordisk essentially uses discriminant function analysis to compare the measurements from the unknown individual to those of known and identified individuals. The Fordisk results in this case classified this woman as a white male, indicating that even with gender-affirming medical interventions, forensic anthropology methods are exclusionary of transgender women. This puts them at risk of being misgendered, misidentified, or unidentified in forensic casework, and ultimately can impede forensic investigations. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you. Hello. Squisha? Make sure I'm pronouncing your first name right. I'll see if you're on camera.
Yes, it's Scotia. It's saying my camera did work and now it's.
That's okay. Just give it a second, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to try to click it on.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, perfect. Our next slammer is Scotia Hammond, exploring the intersection of stress, resilience, and relationship with their teachers among high school students with emotional and behavioral disorders. Scotia is a PhD candidate in special education with advisor Dr. Joseph Morgan. I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Valerie. All right. Some say adolescence is the best time of life, but I want you all to think back to your high school days. Did you frequently feel stressed and overwhelmed? Stressing over grades, homework, having a job, college applications, all while trying to maintain a social life. Research suggests the stress adolescents experience has significantly increased over the years. In fact, the American Psychological Association reported adolescents are experiencing higher rates of stress than adults. This is especially concerning considering adolescents are not developmentally equipped to handle such high rates of stress. Experiencing high rates of stress during this developmental period can have an impact on their overall brain development. This can go on to affect their emotional regulation, mental health, academic performance, concentration, just to name a few of the negative effects of stress. Previous research suggests an individual's resiliency can actually counteract and mitigate the negative effects of stress. One way to improve student resiliency is through relationships, such as student-teacher relationships. Students with emotional and behavioral disorders, also known as EBD, this incorporates a wide range of disorders such as anxiety, depression, ADHD, conduct disorder. These students often experience high levels of stress, have low levels of resiliency skills, and report having poor relationships with others, including their teachers. All of these characteristics make students with EBD an extremely vulnerable population to the negative effects of stress. I used a mixed method study designed to explore stress, resiliency, and student-teacher relationship among students with EBD. The results of my study suggest students with EBD and their teachers identified the most important characteristics of their relationship to be caring, respectful, and dependable. The results suggest students with EBD most commonly stress about their future, home life, and school performance, and they most commonly rely on internal attributes to cope with stress. The overarching research question sought to explore the intersection of these variables, and the results suggest there is not a significant relationship. However, that is also likely due to the small sample size, as this study only had 5 students participate. The results of this study will help inform future intervention design, which is aimed at specifically reducing student stress while increasing student resiliency, such as by targeting and increasing student-teacher relationships in order to help students overcome the negative effects of stress. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Tahir? Sure your
Yes.
camera is working?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Would you like to pronounce your name for me?
Yeah, it's Tahir. People call me Tahir. It's okay.
Tahir Ali
Yeah.
and then last name?
Sheikh. Sheikh.
Sheikh? Okay.
Yeah.
Our next slammer is Tahir Ali Sheikh, who will be presenting on impacts of homelessness on the water quality in Las Vegas Valley. Tahir is a PhD student in civil and environmental engineering with advisor Dr. Shahid Hamid. I will now turn it over to you, Tahir.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My presentation is on the impacts of homelessness on the water quality. So I'll start by asking you all just one question. If you guys think by any chance homelessness have any impact on water quality of our of our drinking water resources or not? Yes, it has. Because if you go through the Las Vegas Valley, you will see a lot of homeless people, which you can see in the first figure, living in the stormwater drains, which they contribute human waste, dispose of their food waste, everything over there. And in case of a storm event, what happens is that this all waste get washed off and they travel through all the washes and get accumulated in Lake Mead. So my how to address this and how to study how much homelessness is impacting our drinking water resources. So my research is what I will do is to take a lot of samples throughout the valley and see what's the concentrations of these contaminants on all these locations. And what's important is to know what areas are contributing to these particular points. So whereas we can see that the figure number 2 in my research shows that all the boundaries which are contributing to each sampling location, and in each for these boundaries will tell us which population is residing inside these watersheds, and we can count the number of people living inside these watersheds. And finally, what we can do is correlate the number of homeless population and other contributing factors with the concentration of trace organic contaminants at these sampling locations. This will tell us if there is an impact of homeless people on our drinking water resources or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us for our preliminary round. That was our last slammer for this session. A very special thank you to our Grad Academy team who have made this 3MT event possible. Now, you could just stay tuned. We will announce the winners of this session live in just a few minutes. While we'll only have the top 3 winners of this round progressing to the semifinals, you will all be winners of a Rebel Grad Slam t-shirt, and you can get that at the Rebel Grad Slam's finals reception on Friday. I believe we're going to listen to some music while we tabulate the scores, and I will be right back. Hello, and I would like to welcome everyone back. Okay, so as I had mentioned before, only the top 3 winners of this round will progress to the semifinals. And I would like to let you know that the preliminary round first place winner will receive a $300 scholarship. The second place winner will receive a $200 scholarship, and our third place winner will receive a $100 scholarship. So there'll be 3 winners from this round, each receiving scholarship money. Are you ready? I am going to announce the winners of this preliminary session. In third place, we have Taylor Flattery. Congratulations. In second place, we have Nicole Santero. Congratulations. And in first place, we have Scotia Hammond. Congratulations. So thank you again for everyone's participation, and I hope everyone will join us for the semifinal rounds, which will be held this Thursday, November 3rd. And there'll be 3 rounds, 3 different sessions. So one will be at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 1:30, and all 3 will be held in the Student Union Philip Cohen Theater. And then, as I said earlier, the finals will be held on Friday, November 4th at 4 p.m., and that's going to be in the Greenspun Auditorium. Lastly, we will have your Rebel Grad Slam t-shirts available at finals at the reception at 5 o'clock in the Greenspun lobby. You can RSVP here, and I'm going to paste the RSVP link in the chat. Never mind, the RSVP link's missing, but I bet we can find it super quick. And thank you again to our amazing judges. We know that this is very difficult and we couldn't do this without you. And we hope everybody had a great time. I knew Nev would post it very quickly. So please, if you plan to attend the finals on Friday, if you could RSVP on the link in the chat there. And if you have any questions, just let our Grad Academy team know, and we're here to help y'all. All right, have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Emily Lin and the Associate Dean of the Graduate College. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our 9th annual Rebel Grad Slam 3-minute thesis competition. The 3-minute thesis, or 3MT, competition model was developed at the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. It spread to other universities in Australia and New Zealand in 2009 and 2010. By 2011, the 3MT competition phenomena had spread around the globe, and now more than 600 universities from more than 65 countries hold these competitions. In 2014, UNLV held our first 3MT, the Rebel Grad Slam, and this year is our 9th annual Research Rumble. The 3MT is a fantastic opportunity for students to learn how to convey who they are, what they study, why they study it, how they study it, what they found or expect to find, and why it matters to an audience of folks who are mostly outside their field. It's an important opportunity to build public speaking and communication skills and to polish one's elevator speech describing what they study as graduate students. It's worth noting that our slammers come from all over campus and from a wide range of disciplines. Some are first-year students, while others are in their final year. Some slammers are master's students, while others are advanced doctoral candidates. It's a diverse pool of 80 graduate students competing here this week. So today we have a group of UNLV graduate students who have been randomly assigned to compete in this preliminary session. Each will present their research in 3 minutes or less using 1 slide and no props. We will introduce students and then start the timer. If a student goes over 3 minutes, they will be eliminated from the competition, unfortunately. Slammers are encouraged to pace themselves and use their 3 minutes without going over. It's certainly not easy, but it's what the 3MT is all about. So slammers, just a few reminders. Please make sure to keep your microphone on mute and video off when other competitors are presenting, and only turn on your microphone and video when you are presenting. Please be sure to stay for the entire session, even after you are done presenting. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat in between presenters, but please don't use chat during anyone's presentation, as it may be distracting. You may sit or stand while presenting. You may also wear a mask while presenting, and the judges will not penalize you for doing so. Remember, you only have 2 minutes and 59 seconds and 1 chance to compete. And please keep your eye on the timer. It's going to appear on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And once you begin speaking, we will start the timer, and you will not be able to restart unless something beyond your control happens. And let's say, for instance, your dog starts barking in the background just as you are presenting. Please do not stop and continue on with the presentation. I will stop you if there are any other circumstances. Please don't worry, even if you lose Wi-Fi or you're disconnected, please just join back in. We'll wait a minute for you, and then we'll go on to the next presenter. And if that happens, you can redo your presentation at the end. And please remember that you may not read your presentation or use any notes on your screen or in front of you. Okay, let's take a moment now to turn our attention to the scoring for this research rumble. The judges will be assessing the competitors based on 4 metrics, which total 24 possible points in 4 major categories, which include comprehension, content, engagement, and communication. Each judge will independently score each competitor. Judges will not penalize competitors for wearing masks to present or unanticipated disruptions that are beyond the slammer's control. At the end of the presentations, we will tally the judges' combined scores for each grad slammer and announce the winners right here live tonight. The top 3 in this session will advance to the semifinals. I'd like to note that this round of the competition is happening live in WebEx and will simultaneously air live on the Graduate College's YouTube channel. And to give you a sense of this year's competition, 80 students are competing in the preliminary rounds. Around 36 will move on to the semifinals, and only about 9 will advance to the finals, which will be held at 4 o'clock this Friday, November the 4th. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the judges now, and then we'll get on with our 3MT Research Rumble. We have a set of very distinguished judges in today's session, and they include, let's see, Dr. Bu Shang-Sang, who is an associate professor in the life sciences in the College of Sciences. We also have Professor Dr. Liam Frank, who is home department is in anthropology and from the College of Liberal Arts. We also have Associate Director Victoria Mitchell, who is in the Lee Business School. And we have also with us as a judge, Dr. Jennifer Stevens, who is a part-time instructor in sociology in the College of Liberal Arts. So welcome and thank you so much, judges, for serving on our distinguished panel today. And at this point, I believe we are ready to begin the competition. And so our first competitor, our slammer, is Jennifer Lee, and she is going to be presenting on pre-pulse inhibition in psychopathy, and she is currently in the PhD clinical psychology program and working with her advisor, Dr. Stephen Benning. So whenever you're ready to begin, please go ahead, Jennifer.
So pre-pulse inhibition is basically the process by which a weak stimulus called the pre-pulse occurs before a stronger stimulus called the pulse or the startle, and then as a result, the person's reaction to the startle is smaller because they heard the weaker stimulus beforehand. So the startle is usually the sound of a blast of air, and the startle reaction can actually be measured by measuring the startle blink. So in past studies examining the pre-pulse, it's always a weak acoustic tone and a time gap in between, and then the startle. So instead of just a typical tone for the pre-pulse, we wanted to change the pre-pulse into different words. So in aversive situations, such as those involving threat or fear, people usually close off their attention, which may reduce their startle blink. Whereas in pleasant situations, people open up their attention, which may increase their startle blink. So we basically want to see how aversive prepulses versus pleasant prepulses affect the inhibition of the startle blink. And we basically want to do this by using one syllable, negative, positive, or neutral words that play in the participant's ear before they hear the startle. So for our neutral prepulses, we will have two groups of one-syllable words, including either objects or places. We will also have two pleasant groups of happy or calming words, and then our aversive words will include fearful or shameful words. And we basically want to compare this to different parts of psychopathy. So psychopathy is basically comprised of individuals who are bold and are less reactive to fear, and they are also impervious to stimuli that is shameful. So any social cues that may shame them or make them feel badly about themselves. So it's important to study different parts of psychopathy to learn the different mechanisms that motivate psychopaths to engage in risky behavior so we can learn to craft interventions for risk management and intervene individuals who are more likely to participate in antisocial or risky behaviors that might harm others or themselves. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. And at this time, I would like to invite the judges to do their scoring. Okay, now we are ready for our next slammer, Jordan Saunders. And Jordan will be presenting on public perceptions of potential negative consequences of officer body-worn cameras. Jordan is currently a student in criminology and criminal justice with advisor Dr. William Souza. And whenever you are ready, Jordan, you may begin.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan Sanders, and my study examines how potential negative consequences of body-worn cameras may influence overall support for the technology. This study used survey data taken from a 2015 survey from an article published by Drs. William Sousa, Terrence Neebe, and Mari Sakiyama that examined how potential beneficial consequences can influence support. This study was also important because most criminology studies focus on how the technology is effective, so how it reduces use of force, how it can reduce cooperation with. So this study in particular used the potential consequences of reduced cooperation with citizens, the victims and suspects, as well as the accessibility of body-worn camera footage, if the public and the media should have access to them. And finally, if the body-worn cameras violated the privacy of the suspects, victims, and the general public of anyone in viewing range. After the final sample included 599 respondents, of mostly white, male, educated, Democratic from cities, and also made an income of over 50,000. The predictor variables from the regression analysis found that the individuals that were less likely to support body-worn cameras believe that the cameras violated the privacy of suspects and also reduced citizen cooperation with the police. Interestingly enough, the positive influences were media accessibility. If individuals believe that the media should have access to the footage, they were more likely to believe that the body-worn cameras should be implemented. This study's findings are important for the policy implementation, especially as more and more police departments in the United States implement the technology in order to increase the community and police relationship. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And at this time, I'm going to ask the judges to please do their scoring. Okay, and our next slammer is Miriam Hadi. She is going to be presenting on characterization of the WRKY gene family in Hawaiian metrosiderals, and she is currently a PhD candidate in evolution biology, and her advisor is Dr. Elizabeth Stacy. So whenever you are ready, Miriam, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Hi, have you ever been to the Hawaii? If not, all we can do is to imagine for now. Imagine you are hiking on one of the spectacular trails in Hawaii. What you see, you see the very gigantic tree all towering over you in all forms, shapes, and sizes. What comes to your mind at first glance? Somebody please take a photo of me. Upside down panorama, please. Just kidding. But seriously, think about it. What do you think? Imagine how on earth all these trees come over all the way here. Why they are in different shape, how they can survive in different environment. Um, if this question comes to your mind, you might consider a job as an evolutionary biologist. My job as an evolutionary biologist is finding answer for these questions. Metrosideros is one of these trees that I'm interested in, and this tree expanded rapidly in Hawaii Island around 3 to 4 million years ago and could adapt to different environments. You can find it near lava flow or near the river or rainforest or even a desert. And it can grow in different shape, as small as a bush or as big as a very long tree. Trees respond to the environmental change by adaptation. And molecularly speaking, adaptation are governed by genes. So to study these genes, we need to study these genes, and one of specifically these genes that I'm studying is Morky gene, that they have an important role in adaptation to different environments. So since there is no study about Morky gene and Metrosideros, I sequence, identify, and classify them. And our next step is comparing the gene expression of expression of the Morky gene in different trees. For example, if you see a different level of expression in a tree that is adapted to the lava flow compared to the river, you can consider that this gene is important to adaptation. I hope I can see you in Hawaii one day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And at this time, the judges will get to work on their scoring, and while we enjoy a bit of music. Thank you. Great, and next slammer is Andrea Rangelova, and she is working on the rise of the US dollar, a concern for the global business and economy. She is currently getting a graduate certificate in business administration and Lee Business School, and she is working with Dr. Bradley Wimmer. So whenever you are ready, Andrea, please go ahead.
Andrea, you're on mute.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea, and I'm going to talk about the rise of the US dollar. 2022 is an interesting year. Falling stocks, raising interest rates, falling currencies, and the fall of the cryptocurrencies. However, it's very strong for the US dollar. It has reached the ultimate high since the early 2000s. So today I'm going to talk about how this happened and what are the couple of reasons for that. The first major reason is the raise of interest rates. The federal government has raised the interest rates to fight inflation and potential recession. On the other hand, European Union and Asian countries like Japan and China did not raise the interest rates at the same time. As well, that could be a really good point for the American tourists that want to travel overseas. For example, American tourists that visits Paris in a top resorts that would cost 2,000 euro is equal to $2,000 today. On the other hand, a year ago, it was 16% more. So it's almost $300 just for that. For example, a British tourist that visits Las Vegas in a top resort that would spend, let's say, $5,000, would spend roughly like 4,350 British pounds. A year ago, that was 18% more, which was equivalent to, let's say, $5,160. So it's a lot. It is a lot, and the other countries are concerned how their currencies are falling behind. For example, today $1 is equal to €1, and a year ago $1 was equal to 0.86 euro. $1 is equal to it was equal to 0.87, and a year ago it was equal to 0.73 British pounds. So it is a lot, and on the other hand, the US dollar is reserve currency for the world, and this means that a lot of countries are concerned. Lastly, my conclusion is the US dollar is really controversial because it can harm many American businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And so it's time for the judges now to do their ratings. Thank you. And next, our next slammer is Colette Talls, and she is presenting on the importance of nuclear engineering in the 21st century. She is currently a PhD program in mechanical engineering and working with Dr. Alexander Basilov. And when you are ready, Colette, you may begin.
Okay, so as a researcher, it's important sometimes to kind of take that step back and really look into the importance of why you're studying what you're studying and why you've gone into the field that you've chosen. So I'm going to be talking about the importance of nuclear engineering in the 21st century. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the use and study of radiation. And radiation is the emission of energy at the speed of light. And so, as nuclear engineers, we use radiation for a plethora of different things, such as operating nuclear energy systems or even using it in space exploration. And transferring to nuclear energy is something that I find very important because it is a new and reliable way to cut down on fossil fuels that we currently rely heavily on in the current generation. And cutting down these fossil fuels will also help with the carbon emissions that we deal with and global warming. And it also helps with the use of electricity generation. The employment outlook for nuclear engineers in the next 10 years from 2016 to 2026 is to grow 4%. That number is not very large, but as it ties to my next topic, which would be future contributions, there are incidents like this that kind of help us and guide us to seeing which ways we can improve and have more nuclear engineers in the industry. Nuclear engineers work in a plethora of different areas, such as in energy, government, medicine, or even in space. Some future contributions, hopefully, we can improve and learn from history and not repeat history. And we see how the current situation in Ukraine, we can look at that and take into play of how we can come up with better ways to protect our nuclear power plants for future instances, because as we know, nuclear energy can be very, very detrimental for those that are in the area. So I feel it is very important that we use this time and this research to kind of find ways to better improve the safety of our nuclear energy and power plants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colette. And at this time, the judges know what to do. They're doing their scoring now while we enjoy music. Thank you. All right, and our last competitor for this session is Jen Chandler, and she is presenting Does an Actor Need Technique? And she is currently an MFA student in performance, and she's working with Phil Hubbard. And so whenever you are ready, Jen, please begin.
All right, so you might be wondering, what research does an actor actually need to do? And for me, it boils down to one word: technique. I've spent years of my life studying and putting into practice different acting techniques. Why? Because no matter how good of an actor you are naturally, no matter how good you are naturally, If you don't have technique, you cannot consistently give a good performance. Without technique, every time an actor puts a foot on stage or steps in front of a camera, you put your fate, your performance, into the hands of what I like to call the wheel of fortune, which you can see on my PowerPoint. You spin that wheel, metaphorically speaking, and your performance might be great. It might be fantastic. It might be the best thing that mankind has ever seen. But it also might be terrible, horrible, awful, or just meh. Without technique, good acting is just luck. Like a musician, every actor needs to learn how to master their instrument, which for us is our voice and our body. So here at UNLV, I've been studying technique under Michael Lugering, who's a professor here, and he created a technique using expressive actions, which primarily uses the physicality of the body to give subtext and meaning. So to put that into perspective for you, I want to share a quote from him, something he said in our first semester. He said that pride has a size, and joy has an expansiveness, and sorrow has a weight. He said, that's how we emphasize with people. That's how we empathize with people. We know how they feel. End quote. And he meant that literally, like we literally know what emotions feel like physically. So to help actors master that, he created 20 expressive actions, which you can see on my PowerPoint. And if you look at them, you can see that they're designed to engage both the body and the voice. I'm going to give a short demonstration of how they can be used using the sentence, I love you. So it's a little difficult to do body on camera, so I'm primarily going to use my voice, but pay attention to what story is being told with each expressive action that I choose. So we'll start with charge. I love you. Release. I love you. Let's skip to expand. I love you. Or let's go with light. I love you. As you can see, there's power that comes with technique. I can create and recreate those performances anytime that I want because I know what I'm doing with my body and my voice. So all of this leads up to the question of why is this important? It's not necessarily going to change the world. I mean, it might, you never know. But I can't say that my acting technique is going to change the world. But what I do know is that art brings joy. It brings joy to its creator and to its audience. And I can't imagine doing anything more important with my life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jen. And at this time, while the judges are doing their final scoring, I'm going to take a moment to thank you all so much for joining us during this preliminary session. And a special thank you to the Grad Academy team who have made this 3MT event possible. Now, please just stay tuned. We'll announce winners live in just a few minutes while we're trying to tally up the scores. And remember, while only the top 3 winners of this round will progress to the semifinals, you are all winners because you will be receiving a Rebel Grad Slam t-shirt for your participation. And so you can get your t-shirt during the finals, the receptions on Friday. And the prize for the semifinals, which is our next round, is going to be first place for the winners will get $600. Second place winners will get $400, and the third place winner will get $200. So at this time then, we'll give our team just a few moments to tally up final scores, and I'll return back when I have the final results. So just hang on, everybody. I'll be right back after the results are announced. Thanks. Okay, everybody, we kept you in suspense long enough. We are ready to announce the winners who will be moving on to this semifinal session. And I will start with the third place finisher for today, who will advance to the semifinals. Congratulations, Miriam Hadi, you are moving on. Our second place finisher will also move on to semifinals, and it's Colette Tolles. Congratulations, Colette. And
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And so our first place finisher for today is Jen Chandler. Congratulations, Jen. You're moving on to the semifinals.
Thank
And
you.
everyone, thanks again for your participation, and please join us for the semifinals. Remember, that's going to be held on Thursday, November the 3rd at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 1:30 p.m. in the Student Union Philip Cohen Theater. And join us, please, for the finals this Friday, November the 4th at 4 p.m. in the Greenspun Auditorium. And we will have your Rebel Grad Slam t-shirts available at the finals reception at 5 p.m. in the Greenspun lobby. I'll paste it for you in the chat, a link where you can RSVP. And that's all we have for tonight. I'd like to thank you once again for participating. Our distinguished judges, thank you so much for your hard and quick work during these sessions. And our participants, thank you so much. You are all winners. So have a good evening, everybody.